I will tell you the story as simply as I can, said Oscar. In truth, it can be simply told. Yesterday afternoon, he began, at some time between 3:30 and 4 o'clock, I presented myself at the door of number 23 Cowley Street in Westminster. I had an appointment there and I was late. I knocked sharply at the door, but there was no reply. I rang the doorbell, still nothing. Impatiently, I knocked again more loudly. I rang the bell once more. I've chosen Oscar Wilde and the Candlelight Murders by Giles Brandreth. It's a crime novel. It's based, obviously it's fiction, but there are some facts in there because it's based around Oscar Wilde's life. It's narrated by Robert Sherrard, who's a good friend of Oscar Wilde's, and in fact when Oscar Wilde died he wrote 3 biographies about him. Eventually, after what must have been several minutes, I was admitted by the housekeeper. Because I was late, I did not wait to listen to her excuses. Immediately I climbed the stairs alone and let myself into the first floor sitting room. I was utterly unprepared for the scene that awaited me. It was a scene of horror, grotesque and pitiable. He paused, shook his head and lit a cigarette. "Go on," said Conan Doyle. Oscar drew on the cigarette and his voice, barely above a whisper, continued. There, lying on the floor, his feet towards me, was the body of a boy. Now the book starts when Oscar Wilde goes to some rooms that he rents. He's on an assignation and he's set to meet somebody. But when he goes in and opens the door, he actually finds the body of a young boy that he's associated with, who's had his throat cut. Oscar Wilde immediately leaves, and then the rest of the book is about him trying to investigate the murder, because when he does finally tell the police about it, the body's disappeared and nobody believes him. So along with Robert Sherrard and his other good friend, who's Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote the Sherlock Holmes books, they investigate the murder. Conan Doyle's gaze remained fixed on Oscar. "What did you do then?" he asked. "I fled the scene," said Oscar, lowering his eyes as if in shame. It's actually the first book. There are 3 out at the moment. The new one's just come out. I don't know if there are going to be some more, but the first 2 up to now have certainly been really enjoyable. The author's Giles Brandreth. You may remember him from his, he was an MP, he's also on television, and most people I think remember him for his brightly coloured jumpers. It's obviously a crime novel, but anyone who likes Oscar Wilde as well would like it. It's really good, it sort of shows Oscar Wilde's character, so it's a really good read. And anybody who's sort of interested in Oscar Wilde and who likes crime novels, and it's quite a light read, so it's probably quite a good holiday read, and it's always good, I think, to get into something where you know there's another one to come as well when you've finished it. It was beginning to get dark when we walked down the Ramblas among a crowd who had come out for a stroll on a hot, humid afternoon. There was only the hint of a breeze. Balcony doors and windows were wide open, with people leaning out of them, watching the human parade under an amber-coloured sky. The second book I've chosen is The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. The book is based around the story of a young boy who's a struggling author called David Martin, and it's about him trying to get his book published. He makes a living by writing crime stories for a newspaper that he works on. Senor Vidal, who funds him and who's his boss at work and encourages him, is also a writer, but he's not as good as David. And the girl that they both love, Christina, she asks David if he'll help her to rewrite the books for Senor Vidal, because it's his life's ambition to have a published book, which is what David does. The book's really successful. At the same time, David publishes his own first novel, which unfortunately bombs, and then David decides the only way he can save his book is by taking it to the Cemetery of the Forgotten Books, which is a place which is also mentioned in the previous book, which is The Shadow of the Wind. It's a place in Barcelona where not many people go. You have to be invited to go there, and you can leave a book there that you want to never be forgotten, maybe one of your own books or a book that you really like, so it would never be destroyed, it would be kept there forever. The first time that you actually go, you can also choose a book of your choice, and it's just a fascinating story about David's life and fantastic streets of Barcelona. Semper walked quickly and didn't slow down until we sighted an arcade of shadows at the entrance to Calle Arco del Teatro. Before crossing over, he looked at me solemnly and said, "Martin, you mustn't tell anyone what you're about to see. Not even Vidal, no one." I think it'll appeal to, again, a broad spectrum of people who like crime, people who like mysteries, people who just like general fiction, also people who like Spain, who like Barcelona, because there's a lot about Barcelona in it, the streets and the mystery, and a lot of places are described. So again, I think it's a book that appeals to everybody. I wouldn't say it was an easy read, it's because it's quite involved, there's a lot of description in it, but it is a fantastic read. I would highly recommend it, and especially if you've read The Shadow of the Wind as well, a lot of the same places and a couple of the same characters are in it as well.